All right. Hello and welcome to episode number 21 of the Maximizing E-commerce podcast. My name is Kevin and I am the host of this show. I'm going to do things a little differently today. Normally, this show is interview-based format, but I'm actually doing this all by my lonesome today. I actually have gotten a few questions about, tell me a little bit more about your story. Tell me about, how did you get into all this and what are you thinking about? And just had me thinking, this would be a good time to just share a little bit about my story. So funny thing is, as I record this, I actually batched a couple episodes here today, which I've come to learn to really like when you batch stuff, because, you can do a bunch of, knock out a bunch of the same task and, not have to keep switching mentally and doing them over and over again. Anyway, I'm going on a little bit of a tangent there, so indulge me in that. Sorry, I should say thank you for indulging me in that. But what I really wanted to talk about here is, I'm getting ready for Brand Accelerator Live. So when this episode goes live, Brand Accelerator Live would have already happened. And it just had me thinking quite a bit, because people have been asking me about, hey, how did you get into all this? Tell me a little bit about this. So some people may have heard my story in other places, and I'll try, if you have heard my story, I'll try to make this somewhat unique in sharing some things along the way. But at the same time, too, really want to help you. So I don't want to just make this about me. But, how did I get to certain places? How did I, get involved with doing an event and things of that nature? So just to tell you a little bit about me and how I got into all this. So I, for the longest time, wanted to, climb the corporate ladder. And I don't disparage anyone who climbs the corporate ladder. You can find really good jobs and you can find things you're really passionate about. I just decided, early on, I wanted to be CEO of Disney, to be honest. So I was a intern at Walt Disney World twice in college, and I afterwards went back and I was a manager there for a few years. And then I left and I went to a hotel company nearby. And I remember it was around the Great Recession, so to speak. So whether it be like 08, 09, 2010, it just had me questioning a little bit about what was going on. Am I going the right path? And I was still in that mindset of just keep forging ahead. But one of the pivotal things that really had me thinking about, am I really on the right path here, was my father been healthy his whole life. And he was 61, 62. And he was driving home from work. And the story, as I understand it, is he was driving erratically all of a sudden. He wasn't even really sure why. And he gets home and he's like, half of his face, like almost like the muscles weren't working. And he was lucky he got home. So we thought he had a stroke. And we get home, or I'm in Florida because I live in Florida, and this is in Dallas where my parents live. And what happened was he didn't have a stroke. He actually had something called glioblastoma, which is an extremely aggressive form of brain tumor. Like, I'm pretty certain it's the same type of brain tumor that John McCain had, if you, not to get into politics at all, but just for frame of reference. And my dad had battled that, and it was 16 months later, he passed away. We lost him. And what was crazy was, just had me thinking, like, what am I working towards here? Because my dad was a very hard worker and he was very loyal, and it just all ended. And it had me thinking, I liked the people I worked with. I liked the companies I was working for. I liked the job I did. But just had me thinking, am I in the right spot? So I started listening to podcasts. let's say this is around 2011. And I started listening to entrepreneurial podcasts, and it was starting to like hit a nerve with me of like all the things you can do. Whereas I felt like I was in a lot of meetings learning about in a very polite, very professional way, but I was learning about all the things you can't do, or you're not supposed to do, or you're not allowed to do this. It was always, nice and, pleasant, but it was, don't do this, don't do that, type of thing. And I understand when when you're a big company and you have a lot to lose and you've got, 10,000 employees or whatever you got, you have to have some thou shalt nots. I get it. But everything's very regimented. So if you really want to control your destiny, it can be hard. And that was what I was really learning. So as I was climbing up the ladder, I was realizing like it's not just like show up to work, do a good job, and you'll be recognized. Maybe the people around you recognize, but it's not really even about them. It's oftentimes about people you don't even know who they are, but there's these days. And if you work for a big company, you probably know what I'm talking about. They decide. And I decided, okay, I wanted to do something. And so I was having trouble figuring out what it was I was going to do. And one day, knock, knock, knock on my door. I'll take a backtrack. So the company I worked for, I was in hotels at the time, working with conventions. And the company I worked for got bought out by another hotel company, a much bigger hotel company. Great company, actually. They were both great companies. And what happened was there was a lot of pressure to meet certain profitability marks. And they were having trouble getting to that. And it was just, when the growing pains, when one company changes to another, things are a little different. Philosophies are different. Sometimes, there's that expectation things are going to grow very quickly, but they didn't quite grow what they thought. And they started going department by department. And they get to the convention center where I worked. And let's just say my level in the company didn't exist in the new company. And so I had always had, I survived layoffs during the Great Recession. And I thought, I'm going to be fine, And then now the tap, tap, tap on the door, and my boss asks me to go join her meeting with her boss. I thought nothing of it. We were having meetings about meetings about meetings. I mean, it was just all these meetings. So it was nothing that surprised me. So I walk in, open up the doors to the conference room where this was, and her boss was there as expected, and across from him was the head of human resources. And all of a sudden, I came to the realization very quick, something ain't right here. Human resources is not in the meetings that I was going to very often. So they basically invited me to either apply for a severance package or to get a severance package or go someplace else. I mean, they were treating me fairly. They were good people. It wasn't anything personal, but it was just like that sense of security I had was now tossed aside. And thankfully, I had some friends of mine who they had an insurance agency, and they invited me to go work with them. Perfect timing. Things worked out really well. In fact, it was kind of for a growth period in their business. And, they're good people, and I still friends with them to this day. But I came to realize very quickly, I'm working hard for other people's dreams. And I always kind of knew that intuitively working for a big corporation. But now all of a sudden, I was watching a company, and I don't really know their numbers or anything, but I'm just going to assume they had really good growth during the time I was there. And I was realizing I'm working really hard for someone else's dreams. And I don't disparage them either, because here's the thing, they were putting the risk, they were the business owners. So I just came to the realization, if I'm going to work this hard, I should be working for myself. I should be figuring out how to make this work for myself. So during that all time period, I one day came across podcasts, trying to figure something I wanted to do, but I was having trouble wrapping my mind. And you may relate to this. At some point, you're trying to figure out what you want to do, and it all just seemed like shiny objects. And one day, I came across a podcast called the Amazing Seller Podcast with Scott Volker, which I know many people listening to this are probably familiar. If you're not familiar with Scott, go listen to his podcast. Great podcast. And I liked what he was talking about. He was creating a system. He was good at creating the vision of like, okay, here's what you should be doing in your business, and here's what things you could do to start. And let's say this was 2015. So he had a webinar, and I took what I learned in the webinar, took notes, and I said, I want to go after this. And I decided to start with retail arbitrage. And before I get into that, I left something out here in the beginning, which I think is a crucial thing. So even before I left the land of the mouse, I was working, and I always had this like entrepreneurial desire, even as a kid. Like I remember going around, trust me, this is all going to go somewhere. I had this entrepreneurial desire, even as a young kid. And I used to go like door to door with lemonade. Like kids talk about doing lemonade stands, whatever. I remember doing door to door and like selling random stuff and like getting a quarter or whatever. I don't even know if I made profit off of it. But, it was like, I just kind of enjoyed it. Like, who likes door to door sales? I wouldn't want to do that now, but like, I guess if I had to, I could do it. But the bottom line is, I always had that like kind of itch to do something entrepreneurial. And with the advent of the internet, it was like you could do all these things. So I remember I was like, I could buy stuff on eBay and sell it. Now we would call that like what, online arbitrage or retail arbitrage. I didn't know what that meant at the time. So I decided I was going to go on and just look for stuff. And I found Nike Forwoods golf clubs selling for $40. And I looked on Nike.com, and they were selling for like, let's say $3.99. That was the MSRP, the manufacturer's suggested retail price. And I was like, I'm going to be rich. All right, I'm going to test this out, and I'm going to buy 2 of them. So I bought 2 of them. And then I came to the realization really quickly, just looking around, and there was no way that these were going to sell for $400, because on eBay, everyone sees what stuff are, sold for. So then I started looking to see what stuff sold for. It was all selling for around $40, $45 or whatever, what I paid for it. And I came to the realization, I'm not going to sell it for the price I was hoping for. So what did I do? Nothing at all. I didn't even try. And that's a disappointment of mine I look back on, because I didn't really stick my toe in the waters of e-commerce until 2015, which I'll get to here in a second. And the crazy thing is, like, let's say 10, 11 years, 04, 05. I'm not even sure when I bought those, because my eBay account doesn't go back that far. It's still the same account, but it doesn't go back that far. I could have sold so much stuff over the years, but I didn't. Why? Because I let doubts get in the way. I let the other people do this. Who are you to do this? Like, you may know what I'm talking about. And I just didn't do anything. And so right now I have one of those golf clubs sitting in my golf bag collecting dust, because I don't really play golf all that much. And then I have the other one actually still in the packaging as a reminder of not taking action. Because think of what I could have done in 10 years. So even if I sold those and lost a little bit of money, what would I have learned? And then I could have gotten some momentum and like that reality of like, okay, do something. Because a lot of people talk about this, and I'm sure you can relate, that when you get that first sale, it's like something clicks. Like, wait, it's not just like theory anymore. It's like, wow, someone somewhere else bought my thing, whatever the thing is. So then let's fast forward to 2015. So I'm listening to the Amazing Seller podcast. I've got, some advice and things I want to do. I'm really looking into this whole idea of, building a brand or whatnot. So I decided to dip my toe in retail arbitrage just to test things out with Amazon. And I go to Walgreens, I buy some stuff. I bought one of those blue freezer pack thingies that you would use to put into your your cooler to keep cans cold. And I bought some other stuff. I bought some books and a bunch of other things. I ship it into Amazon, and I get an email, that it's been received, another email that's been checked in, the order of the emails they send you when your inventory gets there. And I started refreshing the screen, as many of us get hooked on doing. I got hooked on this pretty quickly here. And that night, I was sitting in the bedroom. I remember this clear as day. Sitting in the bedroom, looking at the app, and there's a 0. And all of a sudden, it's 1. And I was just like, wait, what just happened? I made a sale here. This is crazy. So I go running into the living room. I practically threw my phone at my wife. I was like, you have to see this. And I think she thought I was insane. I probably looked insane. I was probably crazy and demonically possessed looking or something. It was crazy. So she quickly realized I was just excited about something. And then I wasn't going to kill her because I was just so amped up. But it was just this rush of adrenaline. I was so excited. And it's like I was hooked at that point. I was like, I got to do this. So I decided I was going to take the money from investing, or I was going to invest basically what I earned as a high school football official. So I was a high school football official, and I took a season's worth of earnings from that fall, because this was the summertime that I bought that stuff. So during the fall, I took that money and I bought my first product. And I remember going through that. It was like, I would think, like I would go to bed thinking, this is awesome. This is really going to do really well. This is going to work. And then I'd wake up the next morning. Oh my God, this is such a bad idea. This isn't going to work. What happened between the night and the morning? Nothing. But I was just working myself up. And I don't know if you're like me, you probably have fits of that, frequently, more than I probably even thought I was. Like, I didn't understand that entrepreneurial ventures, had this kind of like emotional risk, more so even than the financial risk. It's like, there's like weird feelings you get. Like, I can't even describe it sometimes, just especially, if I was to describe this to myself 10 years ago, when I really was just saying, just ship those silly forwards, just put them on there. But we overthink things. And so I started reinvesting my products, and I started reinvesting into new products as I was making sales. And then I decided I was going to start selling internationally. And so I started selling internationally on Amazon and started doing all these other things. And then each international marketplace would be another marketplace. And so it was a way that last year ended up being $100,000 in sales, let's say 6 figures in sales, that I made selling internationally on top of the sales I made on Amazon.com with my current products. And it's not like I was sourcing new products just for international, just taking the same ones I had. And that's how I've kind of come to become, some people have looked at me as the international guy, so to speak. But it's been a lot of fun. And I remember what I was saying, that I got to a point where I was realizing I was working for someone else's dreams. I started realizing I really got to learn more about this world. And so I started attending live events like Seller Summit. So shout out to Steve Chu and Tony Anderson, who put on that event. I was like, it's a really good event. And I started going to other things and just learning more in the entrepreneurial space and trying to really just get my head wrapped around, like, how do I deal with that? Like, that, whether you call it a voice or the little devil on your shoulder, or just that kind of like nagging, tugging feeling of like, don't do that. When you have a good idea and you're like, this is going to be awesome, then all of a sudden it's like you're trying to set yourself right or something like that. Like, it doesn't even make sense. Like, sometimes these little doubts creep in, just get in our way of doing things we should be doing. Well, at Seller Summit, so I'm recording this in 2019, Seller Summit in 2018, which would have been May, so about a year and a half ago as I record this almost, I was talking to Scott Volker. I'd actually met him a couple times, and he was saying at that Seller Summit that he wanted to do more to help people in that intermediate to advanced range because he had been kind of known more as like the how to get started on Amazon guy. And it wasn't really the direction he was looking to go to long term. So he wanted to do more to help people in other directions. It was just casual comment. Like it wasn't looking for like for me to fix something or, you know, bring anything up. And so I went back to my room that night, and I just remember thinking, Scott should do a live event. I was thinking, why should do a live event? Because remember, I used to work in convention centers. I actually managed a team of people that like planned events. I had a few different jobs in the convention center, so I know how conventions work. But there was just that little doubt in my head of like, well, who are you? He's not going to say yes. He's going to be mad at you. He's going to be upset. He's going to put you straight. Well, Scott's actually a really nice guy. You know, if he's going to say no, he's going to do it like, you know, politely. But it's just these doubts, like these things that come into our head. And kind of on that same line, I remember I was listening to this episode of Smart Passive Income. I looked it up recently. It was like, I want to say it was April of 2013. And this is before I'd started anything. There was an episode where he was talking to somebody at a membership site about Magic the Gathering. And I remember listening to that thinking, I don't have anything to offer anyone. Why would I tell myself that? Even if that was true, it's garbage. Find something, Kevin, that you can do to help other people. So fast forward to 2018, I contacted Scott after the event. I said, hey, I have an idea. You should do a live event. And I'm thinking I'm going to get, thank you, we've thought about it, but we're working on, you know, some excuse, polite, I'm sure, but some excuse. He comes back and is like, yeah, it's interesting. Let's talk more about it. I'm like, oh, he wants to talk more about it. So then I'm going through kind of like the vision of how I thought we would, you know, put it together and the moving parts of it. And I guess he liked what I had to say. So we started like looking into hotels and finding a place to have this event and start picking dates and coming up with like, what is this going to look like and all this stuff. And like, so here we are as I record this, it's about to happen. So when you're listening to this, Brand Accelerator Live will have already happened for 2019. And so we're going to have about 200 people there. That's 200 people I would have cheated out of this experience of coming to this event if I didn't ask the question to Scott, hey, would you be interested in doing this? So it really has had my mind thinking like, what else have I done that, or didn't do, I should say, that has prevented other people from getting the value of something? So that Nike 4-wood that's still sitting in the packaging, maybe somebody would have a really good golf game. You know what? Most people don't use 4-woods. Like if you play golf, it's usually you have a 3-wood, a 5-wood, and a driver, and then the irons. But 4-wood's kind of obscure. Maybe somebody really needed 4-wood. Maybe this would have been like help them get the shot they needed to make the US Open or something. I don't know. But I could have cheated someone. So it's like now I start really thinking about like we're cheating people by not putting ourselves out there, by not going after our dreams. And kind of another note on that, this podcast, and I've had a YouTube channel for a couple of years now as I do this, but I didn't put as much effort into the YouTube channel. The podcast, I really like the format of it because I've kind of forced myself to every week post a podcast, and I've hired a company to do the editing for me, and they've done a good job, Podcast Fast Track. And I like the fact I'm kind of holding myself accountable. I need to do it weekly. But I would be cheating you out of, if you're getting enjoyment out of this episode or other episodes, maybe my story's a little too rambly here, but maybe there's speakers I've had, you know, or interviews I've had on this podcast that have helped you. And I would have cheated you out of that if I didn't just start. The people that have bought my products on Amazon, you know, some of them left really positive 5-star reviews, and, you know, it's been gifts and things that have been, you know, created moments or conversation pieces or whatever the case is. You know, that they did, that it benefited them some way. I would have cheated them if I didn't do that. So when we don't pursue the things we should do, we're cheating other people. We're cheating them. We don't want to be cheaters. Now, that doesn't mean go chasing after every shiny object, but when you come to the realization it's time to go do X, Y, or Z, oftentimes we wait too long. I'm saying this from a position of I've I've got more horror stories and success stories looking back at the times I didn't do something, or I came pretty close to not doing something because I let fear and doubt get in the way. And so as you're building your business, keep looking for those things you could be doing to impact other people. Now, you might be thinking, I'm selling tchotchkes on Amazon, whatever it is you're selling. But it's of value to someone. If someone's giving you their money, it's a value to them. Make it good. Put your heart and soul behind it. Even if it's a private label product where it's like you didn't necessarily design it, just make sure it's good. You know, put a brand out there, protect your brand, do the things you need to do to have a brand and build your name outside of Amazon, or not your name necessarily, but your business's name, your brand name. And, do little things to push forward. And, the thing of it is that sometimes we get so caught up in the day-to-day of like, I didn't really get all that much stuff done. I do this myself all the time. I have to remind myself of this, that day-to-day, it's like, nothing really moved. The ball didn't move. But then you look back in a few months and like, oh, wow, all these things have happened. Like, here I am. It's like about to have this event and I moved, I moved that ball down the field. And what I think I missed in there, because I've kind of gone a little bit rambling on this, but last fall, or really right as going into winter, right before the holidays, I decided I was going to go push all the chips on the table and really hammer out a really good fourth quarter to really maximize my sales in the holiday season. And I remember going into my boss's office one day, and this is still, the holiday season, still in the middle of it. It was probably like right after Thanksgiving. And I said, I can have a moment with you. And I put in my notice. My boss, who's a friend of mine, and he was very supportive of it, and wished me well, and still wishes me well. But it was one of those things. It was like, oh wow, now I'm doing this. I don't mean this to be disrespectful, but I fired my boss. I did it. I am now going out on my own. It was something vindicating for that, having, been laid off at my last job to now I'm the one in control of, I left the job on my terms. And, having been in both situations, making sure both work out. There's always options. There's always options for things to work out. And now it's September as I record this. And it was December of last year, somewhat 9 months into it. So babies from the time it was November I put in my notice. It was December I left. And babies have been born, I guess you could say, in that 9-month period. So it's crazy, think about that. I'm almost a year into this as a entrepreneur. I'm full-time and I'm loving it. And I'll be honest with you, I wake up, some days just in total fear, almost paralyzing. It's kind of crazy. But then other days I wake up and I'm like, I got this. I'm doing it. And I just keep pushing ahead. And I got to keep reminding myself. And, I try to remind other people to do the same thing, but I got to eat my own cooking here. I know that. That it's all about just keep inching the ball down the road and keep finding ways to cast a wider net. So as you build your brand, put your brand in more places, whether it's international channels, which if you're listening to this, you can go to internationalchecklist.com. I have a checklist where I walk you through how to do that, but I'm not here to push that. Or it's, going into Walmart or building your own Shopify store, wherever the case is. But you can keep building your channel and do more to build that business. It's amazing what you can put together, and just little things over time help you to do well, to build that business, to grow. And what I've also come to learn is those that do the things others won't do will get the results others won't have. So sometimes it's taking a little bit of risk. Sometimes it's trying a new product. Sometimes it's, going, and maybe running an ad on Facebook or something, even if maybe it doesn't work, but at least try. Put a little bit of effort behind it. Or selling internationally. Maybe it seems like a lot of, hoops to jump through, which I promise you it's really not. But there's all these things you can do to push that ball down the field. And as long as you're growing and moving the ball down the field, things are going well for you. You know what? Time's going to pass, so you might as well have it pass and be positive and growing. And maybe you're at a job. If you like the job and you want to keep working at the job, great. There's nothing wrong with that. You don't have to necessarily leave the job. Or maybe you want to leave that job one day and you want the freedom to, have your own schedule. Great. Just make it a goal. Start saying by X date, I want to do whatever. And that can be scary. I get it. I've shared a few stories where I was terrified. Somewhere I did nothing, somewhere I actually did something. But I've come to learn the more we do something, the better our results are. Because you know what? Something's going to happen regardless. As if it's a result of you doing nothing or you doing something, something is going to happen. So it's my little words of wisdom today. So hopefully you found this to be helpful. If you're watching this on YouTube, do me a favor, leave a comment down below. Just let me know what your thoughts were on this format. If you want me to do more topics where I'm just kind of riffing, talking about a particular topic or what the case is. Still plan to have lots of great guests coming up here. I've got some more scheduled here soon as well. So I thank you so much for joining me on this. And if you've not left an honest rating and review, please leave an honest review on iTunes or wherever you listen to podcasts. And if you're not subscribed, please subscribe on YouTube or your podcast feed. Thank you so much, and I'm wishing you the best in your e-commerce journey. Take care.